Warriors, what's good? Hope all is well. Sending positive energy to everybody. Had to get out in nature, just ground myself. Feel like it was a lot of energy floating around, and want to stay focused, stay lined up with what's important. As you guys can see, I had a few things trying to distract me. I don't know what's wrong with people, man. I have no idea what's wrong with people. But stalkers, I don't know, something I dealt with my whole life. So I guess I should be used to it by now. But it's kind of annoying on this social media thing because, I just want to put out positive messages. But I'm not going to be bullied by anybody. Like, I hate bullies. I hate bullies. That's one fight I'll never turn away from. But with growth, we learn to pick and choose our battle. So let's get on to more important things. So, I've been posting a few things in regard to the mind, as usual, talking about some of these toxins and chemicals that, in our food and in the air, blah, 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 which we already know, which I'm sure everybody's well aware of. But when I started talking about Kundalini and raising the vibration, some people I know don't understand what that really is. Some people are aware of it, but to the depths in which you can explore it, they may still be on their journey. And then some of my people think it's the devil. This boy out here worshiping the devil. So I wanted to kind of just share pieces, because the whole experience is definitely not I just feel it's not an Instagram, YouTube type situation, because it's very personal, very powerful. And I don't know, with this kind of stuff, I've just learned that you have to be very, very, very careful. So, I grew up in the South, in the church, like many people. And my grandmother was very, very instrumental in my life, and she was heavy in the church. She was church secretary secretary and really the treasurer for a long time. So I was always in church. I never really liked church, just being honest. Nothing against it. I was so much of an intellect that I had so many questions that growing up in, as a kid in my time, you didn't question adults, and I would always question things. So I couldn't really connect in a certain way. Not to knock anybody that was trying to help me to grow spiritually in the best way that they know how. But the thing that I can say that I got out of all of it, my grandmother taught me how to pray. Like, really how to pray. And I just kept that with me as I continued to grow and go through different seasons of my life, and prayer kind of helped me to get to the bottom of some things that I had some experiences with, but it was so far outside of what I was taught and what I knew, and I couldn't ignore, where I learned to trust myself even more. And one of those things was this Kundalini experience, right? Now, I'm pretty sure you've seen things on YouTube. Some say bad, some say good, some too much information. So I'm just going to just share some things with you, and hopefully you'll be able to get something out of what I'm saying to be able to add it to your arsenal so that you can get value out of what you're pursuing. So, years ago, this is probably like 14, about 16 years ago, was when I first more or less heard of Kundalini. Didn't dive into it, read a little bit on it. I've read the science behind it and some of the things that were happening in the body. At the time, was a lot of information for me to process, food for thought. So it was hard for me to chew through those thoughts that I was getting because they were so far beyond what I was taught or knew, outside of my culture and things like that. But not so far that I wasn't open to it to learn more. So speeding things up, a few years later, told you guys about getting sick and all that kind of stuff. And I was dealing with nerve pain and nerve issues. So I wanted to know more about my nervous system, which led me into learning more about the way my brain works and all those sort of things on the scientific side of things, just biology or biochemistry, right? But then saw that there was more of a spiritual component that I could relate to because of experiences that I was having. So through the breath work and the reading that I was doing at the time, began to meditate a lot more. Now, earlier in my life, when I was in my early 20s, because I didn't have so much responsibility, I used to meditate for hours. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because you really have to settle the body for certain levels of meditation. So if I'm super active, busy, I was living in the city, it may take me a week, 2 weeks to get my body prepped just to have a certain point within my meditation. Clearing the mind, steadying the mind, grounding yourself with the breath work. And then once you get there, then you have these thoughts that come up, things that you're doing throughout your day that kind of like the ants, automatic negative thoughts. Get rid of those. After you get rid of the negative thoughts and your body's a little bit more settled, then you think about the things that you want to come into play or just people who you're interacting with. Get rid of those thoughts. Then you come into the space of having to let go of the thoughts of love that you have for others, which is a really tricky thing. Because in some spaces of meditation, only your soul can go there. You can't take anything else with you. So you get to that space of like the people who you love and you kind of have to let that go. And it's like, what? How do I do this? And then you work through those spaces or whatever. Then you come into this space of complete emptiness, this nothingness, right? And the first time that I reached that space, it was like I was there and I kind of hyperventilated because it was just empty. You know what I'm saying? I was trying to come back into myself because my body wasn't used to it. So I get to that spot a couple times. And then finally, my mind settled for me to sit in that emptiness without projecting or anticipating receiving. I know this is not for everybody, but for whoever it is, you're going to rock with me. I already know. So, okay, boom. When I was able to sit in that space, absolute nothingness, I continued to do it. And it was like, after I would come out of that space, it was like my program was reset. I saw that. It was like a hard reboot on a computer. And I was like, oh, okay, boom, boom, boom. And I had already had some small experiences of like raising my energy. And in the breath work, so you feel the first things you feel is like you might be a little lightheaded or whatever. A perfect example. Anybody know anything about the Iceman? Wim Hof, and breathing and how it works with the nervous system and how you do the hyperventilating breathing or whatever, and then you hold your breath, and then you'll be able to hold your breath for like 8-9 minutes straight without taking a breath. So it's all kinds of fancy techniques when it comes to breath work to get your mind into a certain place. So you got that, you got bone breathing, trying to think some others, but it's plenty. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. So Bang, right? All right, so I also knew that a lot of people who start to go into these high sciences, like ancient technology, ancient history, studying certain tablets or whatever, going into quantum physics, because of their diet and the biochemistry, they got too many toxins within their body. Inflammation and mucus, or metals from the food, or hormones that are throwing off their rhythm, or whatever the case may be. And what you see a lot of times is people who go into those high sciences, they're on the verge of like being a genius and insanity. And that's because they taking on so much charge. But it'll fry their noodle because they don't have the right equipment up there. They're taking in too much. It's like almost taking a bolt of electricity through a copper wire. It's gonna fry that thing out. So those neuroreceptors, they burn out. And in my case, I was already on fire. So, so be it. You know what I mean? But I got to a place where I was studying this stuff. I was keeping it to myself, really wasn't sharing a lot with a lot of people because it seemed like every time I opened my mouth, people was looking at me like I was crazy, which I am to some degree, but I damn sure know what I was talking about. But the people that kind of responded to some of the changes I was going through the most was the young boys that used to hang with me. They used to see me as, type somebody. And a lot of the young boys in the city that gravitated to me were from other places, especially Africa. Like my young boys from Cameroon and Uganda and Guinea and what's another place? Of course, South Africa, but really my homeboys from Cameroon. Very interesting. And Benin. One of the younger dudes, I would do certain things and there will be some supernatural type stuff or whatever, and they would recognize it and then say, only time I saw that was when I seen somebody in my village do that, these kind of statements, which made me want to look into other things to understand what that was, because I was just having these experiences and then I would go back later to try to figure out what was this, why did that happen, so on and so forth. So just kind of get some context there. But when it came to Kundalini, I got to a place where I was really locked in on finding certain answers in regard to how this worked and was it true. So my diet was clean, had to be clean, because if I ate anything that had any toxins or anything, it'll set my face on fire. Tons of breathing, because it wasn't an option, because I needed my mind clear, because while I was doing that, I was still building a company. And spiritually, I was just growing, so I decided that I was going to take like 2 months and do a certain amount of fasting, water, keep the blood clean, lots of meditation, lots of reading, and the hurts. Listening to the hurts. And very interesting. I'll say can't say if it was my first, because there was so many things that were going on at the time. One of my first experiences with Kundalini was very interesting. And I'll explain it to you like this. Kundalini, so for those who have had a supernatural experience where it's warm and fuzzy and you can just feel the presence of God, and God is there, and you're crying, and you're thankful, and you feel so good, and you're happy, the comforter, or some people say the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit, right? So I've had those experiences. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experiences. Well, Kundalini is like the burning bush. So if the comforter the comforter is more like divine feminine energy, like the nurturing part of God. Kundalini is the masculine. It's straight fire. No other way to really put that. It is straight fire. So when I activated it, I'm gonna have to really think about how I'm gonna explain this. So I'm not gonna go into the details about all of that at the moment, but when it activated, boom, it like you feel, so you feel that heat raise from the bottom of your spine coming up through your neck into your head. It's like almost like you're sitting in a sauna, right? And the first time you do it, you might not be able to hold that space because there's so much that's coming on and it's kind of confusing. Body's never been through it before. You want out of it. You're like, all right, that's enough. But the thing with Kundalini is you don't get to decide when the fire turn off. You know what I'm saying? It gradually, that heat gradually falls back down because these are chemicals, or what they call quicksilver in the spine or whatever. So you're raising that energy, so it take a little bit for it to come back down. Moving on. Once I finally got the hang of what was going on, because you don't just raise your Kundalini every day. Nope. Very dangerous. After you've raised it the first time and you let it come back down, it's probably going to be a while before you do it again because you're probably going to try to process, what the heck was this? You'll start to notice that you're thinking differently. You'll be more sensitive to things that are around you. You won't be able to listen to certain type of music. For a while, I couldn't listen to certain type of music. I couldn't be around certain type of people. It was just one of those things. I couldn't do it. My frequency would not allow me to be around anything that wasn't adding value to my life at that moment. It's like almost like a newborn. You don't have a newborn out in the world the first couple of weeks that it's born. Well, that's how they used to do it. I don't know how they do it now, but newborns you try to protect. They're not able to kind of protect themselves from the elements yet. Same thing with Kundalini. And you can also see it like, it's a muscle that you just maxed out. It's going to take some recovery before you can do it again. So, short season of doing that and learning and coming into some spaces, still in pain. And I think the pain played a great deal in me being able to reach certain levels faster or within a certain space that others may not be able to as easily, because the pain was an influencer. It really was a teacher. So share a little bit more. So then it got to the point of where I understood how my Kundalini worked, how to raise it, even how many breaths it would take for me to even activate if I needed to, what it would do, how to use it. So I was pretty good. But what I noticed is that after I started growing in that level spiritually, other things recognized my energy too that I wasn't aware of, that would be aware of what was going on with me. It's another reason why you got to be careful with Kundalini energy and just the whole like expansion of consciousness. If you're not working on yourself on this whole self-mastery tip, it's extremely dangerous. People think that if you just raise your vibration, only good people raise their vibration. No. Some wicked stuff in high places. It's just the truth. Gotta know that. It's not only that. I mean, there's great things in those places, but there's wickedness in high places. Don't want to get into that too much. Start scaring people off. People are like, oh, here you go, devil worshiper. But to be honest, like, the creator and all of the positive energy, whether you want to consider angels, ancestors, spirit guides, I learned so much during those supernatural experiences that it would take me years to really get to the bottom of those experiences. And some of them I'm still learning from. But I wanted to come on here and talk about the Kundalini thing because Kundalini definitely brings you into a state of knowing. You won't be able to not see the truth after you really activate your Kundalini. And I don't really feel too comfortable going too deep, but I'll just say that a lot of the experiences that I began to have later after I understood what it was, took me so far beyond the 3D where I had long periods of isolation, which were necessary for me to kind of be able to ground myself back here. And some of my folks, you know, they know how I am. It's like I disappear sometimes, you know, because I have to. But I'm here when they need me. You know what I'm saying? I'm always on time. But that's another thing with the Kundalini, you know. It will require you to kind of like pull yourself away from certain environments for you to be able to come into the balance of your truth. But with these toxins, with these metals, all of those things are just there to kind of keep you from being able to access that, because they want you to stay in a space of faith. With faith is great. You need faith. But faith is supposed to lead to knowing. And as we exit the information age and come into the age of knowing, I think that has a lot to do with these technologies that have been weaponized to be able to keep us from accessing our spiritual powers. I just leave that there. Maybe we'll be able to get into that another time on some other things. So there's a lot of information out there of people telling you got to do it like this, you got to do it like that. Stand on one foot, put your finger in your ear, turn around in a circle, lick some ass. You don't have to do none of that shit, yo. Just learn to sit with yourself and trust yourself. In prayer, in meditation, in your positive affirmations, whatever it is that you do, in a high frequency, in a positive frequency, because that's what the universe responds to. The universe doesn't respond to stuff like, oh, I'm not worthy and I'm this, or I hate. It gives you more of that. So for what you want, you have to come with a certain type of energy and frequency. And if you struggle with that, you can use certain hertz like 528 hertz, raise your DNA frequency, 432 hertz, frequency of love, which was much more abundant here before they started cutting down the giant trees. And then we got pyramids all over the place, but that's a whole nother story, you know. So once you can get your energy in that space, what's happening is your blood is vibrating at a certain frequency. The molecules are operating from a certain space. Now I'm trying to explain spiritual things so that they can be comprehended. There's always room for misinterpretation of what's really been said. So either you feel what I'm saying or you don't. And if you don't, no knock. The seed is still there. Whatever positive that comes out of this, when the time is right, you'll be able to go back and say, aha, I understand what he was talking about now. And I'm used to that, because usually I say things and it takes people about 3 years on average to really understand exactly what I'm saying. And it used to be so annoying, like so annoying. But then Spirit was like, you tell me what prophet you ever read and the people actually listen to him. So then I just let it go, because I understand that people got viruses and their Wi-Fi has been hacked. So their programming is altered. So they might not be able to process what I'm saying because I'm operating from a certain frequency. But back to this whole Kundalini thing. So, so with my post I was putting up yesterday, just felt led to put that stuff up. Had some distractions. I was going to say some things yesterday. And then today I made another post in my story. And you'll see exactly why. If you haven't read those documents, you should check them out. And then maybe you'll understand a little bit more of why it's really important to be aware of these toxins and these metals, especially the fake weed. Especially the fake weed. It got a ton of metal in it. Stop smoking that shit. For real. If it's not real herb, like, leave it alone completely. Got a theory on that too. You know, with them putting plastics, nano toxins in food and chemicals in the air, the metals in the air, which allow for them to hit in certain frequencies. Because if you got metals in the air, think about like radio waves. You know what I'm saying? Certain metals in the air allow, boom, that thing to travel a certain type of way. So, got metals in the air, 5G towers, which are like short wave frequencies. And you see everywhere where it's one of those towers, all the life around it is dead. I mean, it pretty much obliterates life around it all the time. Any tower you see, these 5G, whatever, you can see it. So when that thing came back out in 2020, I was just noticing certain patterns, and I'm not saying that this is like an absolute, but it's something to pay attention to. What I notice is if you are dealing with inflammation, mucus turns to inflammation, right? Inflammation will lead to a virus, and a virus leads to a disease. So you got to be able to keep the parasites and inflammation out of your body. No inflammation, no virus. No parasite, no virus. So keep that in mind. You know, get your hands on some of those bitters. Keep the blood clean. Blood is so important. So many things I could really go into about your blood, but we'll leave that for another time. But anyway, keep the blood clean, doing the breath work, because what creates new blood? Oxygen and minerals. And most people are mineral deficient. And the only reason why I knew this is because I had to clean my blood. I got poisoned, and it took a long time to get that crap out of my system. So understanding this helped me to understand some other things and helped me to grow into some spaces where I'm able to share some of these things from experience. Not so much textbook. I'm not knocking the text, but sometimes they get a little wordy, and if they document and study it, that don't mean that they've always experienced it. So the short of the long is, you know, paying attention to your health, what you're eating, drinking, your vices. Are you doing any breathing? Are you aware if your mind is all out of whack and things like that? And if you got a good grip on those things and you're ready to kind of see what this whole Kundalini experience is about, I promise you, you will see an act of God that will be beyond what you can explain to anybody. And you will be able to see, smell, and hear a lie well before it even comes your way. I promise you. So, those documents that they were talking about, they know this too. And they want to keep people from being able to access these spaces. Now, I know it sounds crazy. Read the doc. Check it out. Lead into a whole lot of other stuff. So I'll leave it there. I think that's deep enough but light enough to keep it moving. So once again, I hope all is well with all you warriors out there. We're definitely coming into some big shifts. But if you're not aware of the shifts that's happening, then it's just going to happen to you and not for you. I'll let y'all later. Peace.